Good evening and welcome to another episode of Inside the FLX. I'm Josh Durso and we are coming to you from the FingerLakes1.com studio in downtown Seneca Falls. We have a very exciting show today as Seneca Falls Police Chief Stuart Peenstra joins us in studio to discuss policing, substance abuse, and much more. Chief, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
So, obviously you are the Chief of Police here in Seneca Falls, but for those who might not know where you're from, what you're about, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 44 years old, just turned 44 January 24th.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. I am married, have one boy, 8 years old, married to a beautiful wife, Kristen, and my son, Jack. I'm originally from Onondaga County, out in the country of a small town called Marietta. Went to Marcellus High School. Went to college at Canton for 2 years. From Canton, I went on to Potsdam, where I graduated with a bachelor's degree. And that's where I met my beautiful wife. And shortly after graduation, she got a teaching job here in Seneca Falls, and that's what brought us out here to this area.
So, one of the more national issues facing police officers in general, and that's one of the big reasons why I wanted to have you on, was to sort of talk about what it's actually like today on the front lines policing. What are some of the challenges that you guys are facing right now, given the way the climate is overall?
Yeah, I would say that one of our biggest challenges is the questioning of authority constantly. I feel it's perfectly fine to question authority at the appropriate place and time. So the thing that's happening with our officers today is they're being questioned initially when they first arrive on scene, when they're trying to figure everything out and do their job, and being questioned of why they have to do the certain things they have to do. I think some of these, because people see this nationally, and the perception of law enforcement has changed, unfortunately. It's our job as law enforcement officers to try to move that perception back. But it's a generation thing, I believe, and law enforcement has to adapt to the different generation as we move forward.
Mm-hmm. So I would actually like you to speak to that a little more, is just in terms of, what is it? It has to be one of the more frustrating things. You're an officer arriving on scene. You don't know what it is. You've gotten a call, but that's it. And what is the mindset when you do have a situation like that, where someone is right off the bat already questioning what you're arriving to help or to serve, and you're being distracted basically from the actual task at hand? What is that sort of like for the police officer to have to kind of do two jobs at once?
Yeah, it's frustrating for them because we are public servants. We're there to help the public, and when we're trying to figure out or put the puzzle back together of exactly what took place, you have people, oftentimes yelling and screaming, or different versions of what took place depending on who you're talking to, and then to have people question whether or not we're doing things the way we should be doing them, or violating their civil rights it just makes it that much more difficult for us to help them.
Mm-hmm. So what is the channel, or what should, think of it like a public service announcement. If someone does have a problem with the way law enforcement, not specifically in Seneca Falls or Seneca County, but more broadly, what should the procedure be for someone who feels they've been wronged? Is there a certain time frame they should wait for? Is there a certain cue they should wait for? Or is there a certain person they should reach out to in any given department? Or is it?
Well, I can speak for our department.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know about every single situation where a person feels that we didn't handle a situation correctly.
Mm-hmm.
because without people actually coming to us and telling us these things, we may not know. We're fortunate enough in Seneca Falls to have a few different body cams on officers, which has been a huge asset to everybody, because it makes the officer more accountable, and it makes the public more accountable. So the public is aware that we're videotaping, the officer is aware that we're videotaping, and oftentimes, I've had to go back and review some of these videos and to try to figure out if we actually did do the right thing or not. There's been, nobody's perfect. There's times where we need to adjust our styles in the way we're doing things. And there's been times where, the public, wasn't really right in the situation they're in. So we use these body cams. I'm hoping to get more of them, but the camera's very inexpensive. The video files that you store is very expensive. So
okay,
we're fortunate where Stop DWI pays for all of those. So that is not a budgetary item that comes out of the budget, which is a good thing. But I would like it if all the officers had.
So that was going to be my next question. You would be a proponent then for putting body cams on every police officer across the board, right?
I would. I think they're a great thing. We've had them for quite a few years, so I know they've been a hot topic in different areas. But we've been using them for a few years now, and they've been a great asset. So
you sort of started to touch on it. One of the things that I find interesting is just looking at how a smaller police force, like a municipal in Seneca Falls, would operate as compared to a larger run organization. What are some of the challenges that you guys face that's sort of exclusive to being a smaller community rather than being a Rochester or Syracuse?
We're a smaller agency, so we don't have as much staff, we don't have as much equipment, but we have resources that we can reach out to. So we ask the Seneca County Sheriff's Department, the New York State Police, different agencies like that have the resources and the manpower to help us out on larger cases when we need additional resources or equipment. We can lean on those agencies to get those. So even though we're a smaller agency with less resources, those resources are available to us.
What would you say then, on the opposite side of that coin, what would you say the greatest benefit of being involved in a smaller police organization is compared to, the other side?
Well, by far the best benefit is getting to know the people that you provide a service for and help out. So, when I first moved here, I didn't know anybody from Seneca Falls, and as I continued to work and put myself out there and met people, it's been great. And I absolutely love the job. I love the people. I love the fact that now that I'm the police chief, I'm able to move the department in a way that I really wanted to see it go, and try to provide the best force for the people of the Seneca Falls and the people that visit, because I think they deserve it.
So, you watch the news, whether it's Rochester, Syracuse, whether you're checking us out on fingerlikes1.com. It seems to be more and more frequently we're seeing a lot of drugs moving here, there, coming in, a lot more overdoses, things of that nature. What is it like for you guys dealing with that on the front lines? Because that has to be... It's spiked in recent years, right?
Yeah. It's strange for me, because when I was on the road, which was only just over 4 years ago, I had never actually taken heroin off of anybody on the street here.
Really?
And now for our officers out on the street, it happens quite frequently. So even further 5, 6, 7 years ago, I would have never thought in a million years of us talking about any kind of heroin epidemic or anything like that. it just seemed to me like a 70s drug.
Yeah.
And now today it's out there. You can get it in small towns throughout the nation, and it's really been a big issue. So,
what is continuing with that though, how do you guys what's the plan, or how do you guys plan to combat that? And I'm not talking specifically like in each and individual instance, but as a whole, like there has to be some sort of community awareness or something along those lines. It can't just be on you guys to correct that problem. What is the sort of community involvement that you guys hope to see or would like to see?
Well, obviously, reporting these things to us helps, but we don't get a lot of assistance with that. So we just keep.
They're not eager to turn themselves in.
No. We just keep doing everything we can. We've been working directly with the drug task force with Seneca County, the drug team from Seneca County, hoping to someday get with them a little bit better and work with them a little bit more as a team to try to combat this. And then, I know statewide and national-wide, they've been working on more rehab facilities for people that are suffering from this addiction to try to get them help, because it is a big ripple effect of drug issues and what people do committing crimes to support their drug issue. So we see quite a bit of it here.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you was actually pertaining to the frequency of DWIs, or the frequency of people getting in the car when they probably shouldn't have after they've had a few drinks. As a police officer, as someone who's sat in the administrative side and also been on the road, when the public sees you guys set up at a corner or at, going through the traffic, checking people out, it's one of those things where those who haven't been drinking or haven't been impacted by DWI look at it as an inconvenience. And I think that's a bad perception to have chained to you guys as you try to enforce DWI laws. What is that like from your guys' perspective, trying to combat DWI and making sure that people who have drank aren't on the road?
Well, it seems like a never-ending battle, I'll tell you that. Anybody that's ever been out to a establishment sees everybody drinking multiple drinks, and they're not all taking taxi cabs home. So it's something that we deal with. We're very strict on it here. We have seen a larger increase in taxi cab service at night, which is great. People go out, have a good time, that's great, but figure out a safe ride home.
Yeah.
And but there are still a whole bunch of people that choose to drive and take that gamble, and we in 2015 the Seneca Falls Police Department had the most DWI arrests in the county.
Really?
And we consistently enforce that and very strict about that for lots of reasons.
So you guys have to be everywhere, including schools. That's one of the things that I wanted to ask you about was, what is your take on schools implementing resource officers and things like that, deploying police officers in schools with children, really young children, older children, across the board? What's your take on that? What's your feeling on it?
Well, since we just got our first school resource officer in Seneca Falls history, I'm obviously a big proponent of it. It's been a goal of mine since becoming chief. I've had conversations with Superintendent McKevney for quite some time before our school resource officer, Officer Denny, got into the school. We had multiple meetings on this, trying to figure out financially how we would pay for it. So I think it's a great thing. I was fortunate to work through my career when Sergeant Laffler was in the schools teaching DARE, seeing that connection, being on the road as a police officer, when Sergeant Laffler was my supervisor through many years, and seeing how the kids connected, the families connected, and how that worked with the community, with the police department, all in one, was priceless. So this is our first year of it. I think if we can continue to do this, we're going to see huge benefits from this in our community, our school, and our law enforcement.
So that is one of the bigger questions that I've gotten about resource officer is, what is the actual function? What is the textbook function of the resource officer? It's there. It's not just there if something terrible happens. It's there to serve the school as a whole, correct?
Yeah, so 3 key terms: education, prevention, and intervention is what we use for school resource officers. So, again, he's a school resource officer. He's a resource to the school. He's a resource to our community and our law enforcement division. So he's there to build relationships with these kids. He starts very early, and as the years go on, they're gonna know Officer Denny beyond the uniform. They're gonna know him as an individual. We've already had cases where we've been on scene at a place, and the kids have asked for Officer Denny. He's only been in that role for 5-6 months. That type of stuff is really beneficial to everybody, and you can't put a price tag on that when it comes to the kids.
And you're talking about a level of trust that comes in quick order after something like this, is it because they're seeing them every day, right? Like it's just a repetition? Yeah,
they don't look at him as a police officer or a police officer behind a patrol car. They see him and they know him as a human being, and they respect him and earn their trust throughout, prolonged period of time, not just an officer being called to their house on a domestic or something like that,
So what are some of the, you guys have obviously changed a lot in the last 4 years. What are some of the banner accomplishments that you're really proud of the force so far under your tenure?
Our largest one, and the one that took the most time, was our New York State accreditation. That was needed. We had to revamp all of our policies and procedures, and furthermore, I wanted to prove to the community that our police force was actually doing everything that we needed to do. So when the state comes in and for 3 days and really picks apart all of your policies and procedures and questions officers and sergeants and investigators and myself about those policies, and we have to show them what we're doing, and then to pass that and get through that, was a huge accomplishment for not only the department but the community. That I would say is our largest, and then getting over, it was a big change from a village to a town. So we had to adapt to that, and policing almost 28 square miles compared to, I think, just under 5 was a big difference for all of us. So we've come a long way in the department. Our training has enhanced dramatically. Our officers are much more knowledgeable, today than when I was on the road. It's just been overall a very good experience.
And what are some of the, you talk about some of the things you've already accomplished, but what are some of the things that you guys are aiming for in the next year, 2 years, 3 years?
So it's funny you ask that, because right now I'm going through my 2016 goals and objectives for our department. So every year we have goals and how we're going to achieve those goals. So my couple of my main goals for this year is getting the police department to know the public a little bit better. So we're a hometown police department, and I want my officers to know the people that they protect and serve. So we have a couple different ideas. One of which is, I'm going to try to get nationally. There's a program called Coffee with a Cop.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a way of having some of our officers come to one location and have people in the community get to know us.
Yeah.
And so then when they see us out in the cars, out on the street, they know exactly who we are, because we've had a fairly decent turnover rate.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the officers that worked at the department for many, many years have retired and moved on.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of young officers that some of people in the community may not know. So one of my biggest goals is for everybody in the community to get to know their police department better.
What is, in your estimation, what do you think, and this is a really broad question, but what do you think it will actually take for people to become more trustworthy? You're talking about here, Coffee with a Cop is a perfectly good example of how that trust can start to be bridged. But is there anything else that can be done on either side, whether you're a resident or whether you're a police officer? Is there anything else that can be done to help enhance that trust and rebuild it to where it may have been, 20 years ago?
That's difficult. I mean, we as law enforcement officers need to do a better job at communicating with the public,
mm-hmm.
Speaking to them, treating them like human beings, and respecting them to earn respect back.
Mm-hmm.
That I think is challenging with any agency. I've been working with my department to try to get my officers to do that better.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a work in progress. It's not, and I think that might be, you're struggling with the exact same thing that I feel like most people are struggling with on both sides of the aisle. There isn't necessarily a textbook answer to any of the problems. It's just going to be a slow grind to a solution, right?
Yeah, just working together and trying to get through everything as a team, and
eventually we'll get there.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
any upcoming events that you guys have or that you'd like to mention right now? I recall you were talking about in one of our conversations leading up to this, a DWI, something pertaining to DWI accident, an event of some kind that you wanted to talk about. Give us a quick rundown.
So, Seneca County Stop DWI is going to be hosting a mock DWI crash coming up.
Mm-hmm.
The date is not selected yet, but we have that at the Seneca County Fairgrounds.
Yep.
And we invite all of the high school seniors from throughout Seneca County to attend.
Mm-hmm.
This year we're actually inviting all their parents as well.
Mm-hmm.
So their parents get to see what it's like. And we put together this mock DWI crash, run somebody through field sobriety tests all the way
mm-hmm.
to the point of arrest. It's a fatal accident, so we have the fake blood, and,
mm-hmm.
and some actors play some different roles. Some very upset mothers and fathers come running to the scene.
Yep.
So they get to see a little bit about what it's like to be
the reality
to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And we talk a little bit about what law enforcement or first responders also have to deal with when we have to go to somebody's house and notify a loved one that their son or daughter had just passed away.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's so here's my last ask of you on the show. If there's anybody watching, or just in general, someone who is thinking about, a young person who is thinking about a career in law enforcement, sell them on it, because they look at the news or they read something online and they see a lot of negative stuff about police officers. Sell them on the career, because I've heard you sell this before and you are one of the best at it.
Well, it's a very small portion that gets that bad publicity, and out of those one or two officers you see nationwide that make bad choices and give us a black eye, there's hundreds of thousands of other officers out there working hard every day, doing the right thing, making right choices, and providing, you know, a safe community. And so, you know, don't always look at that one officer as a and cover us as a whole, because the majority of the police officers are good people, men and women out there doing the right thing, and you know, it's the best job in the world. I really do believe that. I can't see myself doing anything else other than that. I've loved it since the day I got into it, and I still love it. So.
All right. Well, we appreciate you coming on the show today, Chief. You have a busy schedule, and thanks for making time for us.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks for having me.
That's going to do it for us today. I'd like to thank Seneca Falls Police Chief Stuart Peenstra for joining us in studio here. Next Thursday, we will have Wayne County Sheriff Barry Virts joining us in studio. He's going to be talking about policing in Wayne County, slightly different juncture there. As a reminder, though, to our viewers, check out fingerlakes1.com for the latest news and updates. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. For Chief Peenstra, I'm Josh Durso, wishing everyone well and reminding you to join us next Thursday on another episode of Inside the FLX.